When a disabled vet confronts Trump during a speech, his emotional reaction will make you cry. A year later, this confrontation will ignite changes that even the disabled vet and his wife would find almost impossible to believe. The atmosphere in the packed convention center crackled with anticipation. Thousands of veterans and their families had gathered to hear Donald Trump speak about his plans for reforming the Department of Veterans Affairs. The air was thick with a mix of hope and skepticism. As Trump took the stage, the crowd erupted in a cacophony of cheers and applause. Some stood waving flags and chanting his name, while others remained seated, arms crossed, waiting to be convinced. Thank you, Trump began, his signature confidence on full display. His distinctive voice burst through the speakers, filling every corner of the vast hall. We're going to make the VA outstanding again, folks. Believe me. The former president launched into his prepared remarks, touching on the familiar themes of American greatness and the sacred duty owed to those who serve. His words were met with nods of agreement and sporadic applause, but there was an undercurrent of restlessness in the crowd. These were men and women who had heard political speeches before and lived the reality behind the rhetoric. As Trump continued, a commotion near the front of the crowd caught his attention. A man in a wheelchair, dressed in full military uniform and adorned with medals and ribbons, was trying to make his way forward. The woman pushing his chair, determination etched on her face, seemed intent on reaching the stage. Trump paused mid-sentence, his eyes fixed on the approaching pair. The audience fell silent, tension filling the air. Secret Service agents moved to intercept them, their earpieces buzzing with urgent communications. But Trump, sensing the importance of the moment, waved them off. "Hold on, folks," Trump said into the microphone, his voice softer now. "I want to hear what this brave veteran has to say." The crowd parted like the Red Sea, creating a path for the wheelchair as it reached the bottom of the stage. Trump did something unexpected. He descended the steps, microphone in hand, and the entire convention center held its collective breath. This was an unbelievable moment, a departure from the carefully choreographed political theater they were accustomed to. "What's your name?" Soldier Trump asked, his usual bravado replaced by a tone of genuine curiosity. "Sergeant Todd Miller," so the man replied, his voice trembling slightly. The medals on his chest clinked softly as he straightened in his chair. "I served 21 years with the 101st Airborne. I need to talk to you about the VA." Trump nodded, gesturing for Todd to continue. The microphone picked up every word, broadcasting this intimate conversation to the thousands in attendance and millions more watching on television. As Todd began to speak, his mind raced back through the years. He remembered the day he enlisted, fresh out of high school in a small Midwest town. He had been filled with patriotic fervor and dreams of serving his country and making a difference in the world. The recruiting officer's words echoed in his memory, "Son, you've got what it takes to be one of the best." He thought of the friends he'd made during basic training, as well as the bonds forged through shared hardship and triumph. Some of those friends were now just names etched on memorial walls, sacrifices made in far-off lands. Todd's mind flashed to his multiple deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan, the searing heat, the constant tension, and the moments of sheer terror interspersed with long stretches of mind-numbing boredom. He remembered the pride he felt leading his fellow soldiers into battle, as well as the weight of responsibility for their lives on his shoulders. And then, unbidden, came the memory of that fateful day when an Eid changed everything: the deafening explosion, the world turning upside down, the searing pain, and then nothing. He had woken up in a field hospital, his legs gone and his future uncertain. The explosion left Todd with severe spinal injuries and both legs missing, but it was the battles he faced after returning home that truly tested his spirit. Endless paperwork, bureaucratic hurdles, and a system that seemed designed to wear down even the most resilient veterans. He remembered the countless hours spent in VA waiting rooms, the phone calls that went unanswered, and the promises of care that never materialized. Each day brought a new challenge, a new form to fill out, and a new hoop to jump through. Todd's wife, April, had been his rock through it all. He glanced at her now, standing beside his wheelchair, her hand resting protectively on his shoulder. She had sacrificed her own career as a teacher to become his full-time caregiver. But as the months turned into years, even her unwavering support couldn't shield Todd from the growing sense of abandonment by the country he had sacrificed so much to serve. As these memories flooded back, Todd's composure began to crack. His voice, which had started strong, now quivered with emotion. "Mr. President," he continued, tears welling up in his eyes, "the system is broken. I've been trying for months to get the care I need, but I'm caught in an endless cycle of red tape and waiting lists. April here," he gestured to his wife, "has become my full-time caregiver because the VA can't or won't help." Something has to change. Todd's voice broke completely, and he began to sob openly, years of frustration and pain pouring out in front of thousands. April squeezed his shoulder, her own tears glistening. The crowd watched in stunned silence as this decorated veteran, a symbol of strength and sacrifice, broke down before them. Many in the audience found themselves wiping away their own tears, moved by the raw emotion of the moment. Veterans in the crowd nodded in silent understanding, their own struggles reflected in Todd's words. Trump, visibly affected by Todd's breakdown, placed a hand on the veteran's arm. The gesture was small, but in that moment it bridged the gap between politician and citizen, between commander and chief. "Soldier Todd," he said, his voice uncharacteristically gentle, "I want you to know that I hear you. Your service, your sacrifice, it means everything to this country, and you deserve so much better than what you're getting." As Todd struggled to regain his composure, Trump addressed the crowd. His voice, amplified by the microphone, echoed through the convention center. "Folks, what we're seeing here is a wake-up call. Our brave veterans, the men and women who put everything on the line for our freedom, are being let down by a broken system. It's unacceptable, and it stops now." Trump's voice grew stronger, filled with determination. "Todd and April, I want you to know that your struggle, your story, it's not going to be in vain. We're going to use this moment as a catalyst for real, lasting change in how we treat our veterans." As Trump spoke, Todd's sobs gradually subsided, replaced by a look of cautious hope. For the first time in years, he felt truly heard. The weight of his struggles, carried for so long in silence, seemed to lift ever so slightly. "I promise you," Trump continued, his words carrying the weight of a solemn vow, "we're going to fix this broken system, not just for Todd, but for every veteran who's been let down. No more endless wait times. No more bureaucratic nightmares. We're going to make sure our veterans get the care they've earned and the respect they deserve." Trump pulled out a business card and a pen, handing them to Todd. "I want you to write down your contact information right here. I'm going to personally see to it that you get the care you need. I also want you and April to be my special guests at a policy meeting next week. We're going to sit down, hear your story in full, and start crafting real solutions." As Todd carefully wrote his information, his hand shaking slightly, the reality of the moment began to sink in. This wasn't just another empty promise or political platitude. This was a chance for his voice to be heard at the highest levels of government. The convention center erupted in applause as Trump helped April push Todd's wheelchair onto the stage. The sound was deafening, like a tidal wave of support and emotion washing over them. Veterans in the crowd stood at attention, rendering salutes to their fellow soldier. Todd, his face still streaked with tears but now bearing a glimmer of hope, felt compelled to address the crowd. He gestured for the microphone, which Trump handed over without hesitation. "Thank you," Todd said, his voice hoarse with emotion. He cleared his throat, gathering strength from the sea of supportive faces before him. "Thank you for listening. To all my fellow veterans out there struggling, don't give up. Maybe now finally things will change." As the audience rose in a standing ovation, Todd's tears flowed freely once again, but this time they were tears of relief, of being heard, of daring to hope for a better future. His raw emotional reaction had not only moved the crowd, but also reignited a national conversation about the treatment of veterans. The impact of Todd's words spread beyond the convention center news outlets, picked up the story, broadcasting clips of the emotional encounter to millions of homes across the country. Social media exploded with reactions, with hashtags trending as people shared their own stories of struggles with the EA system. For Todd and April Miller, their impromptu confrontation with Trump marked the beginning of a new chapter in their lives, one filled with both challenge and hope. As they left the convention center that day, they carried with them the weight of the responsibility for all the veterans whose stories had yet to be heard. In the days that followed, Todd found himself thrust into the spotlight. Interview requests poured in from major news networks, all eager to hear more about his story and his hopes for VA reform. At first, the attention was overwhelming. Todd had never sought to be a spokesperson or a symbol. He was just a soldier who had served his country and wanted the care he had been promised. But as he shared his story again and again, Todd began to realize the power of his voice. He heard from countless veterans who saw themselves in his struggle and who had faced similar battles with bureaucracy and indifference. Their messages of support and solidarity gave him strength, reinforcing his determination to see through the changes he had set in motion. The policy meeting with Trump and his team, held the following week as promised, was both exhausting and exhilarating. For hours, Todd and April shared the details of their journey, the good, the bad, and the ugly of navigating the VA system. They talked about the dedicated doctors and nurses who did their best within a broken system, the frustration of endless wait times and lost paperwork, the toll it all took on their family, and their hope for the future. Trump and his advisors listened intently, asking questions and taking copious notes. There were moments of tension as hard truths were confronted, but also moments of breakthrough as new ideas were proposed and considered. As the meeting concluded, Trump made another promise to Todd and April. "Your story isn't going to be filed away in some report," he assured them. "We're going to use it as a roadmap for real, lasting change. I want you both involved throughout the process." It wasn't an effortless road. There were setbacks and disappointments, moments when it seemed like the entrenched bureaucracy would never change. But there were also victories, small at first, then growing in significance. New legislation was introduced aimed at streamlining the VA system and improving access to care. Funding was increased for mental health services and programs to help veterans transition back to civilian life. A year after that fateful confrontation at the convention center, Todd and April found themselves back on stage, this time at a ceremony marking the signing of the most comprehensive VA reform bill in decades. As Todd watched the president sign the legislation into law, he felt a profound sense of accomplishment mixed with humility. He knew that this was just the beginning. The real work of implementing these changes and transforming the VA's culture was still ahead. But for the first time in years, he felt genuine hope, not just for himself, but for all the veterans who had served their country with honor and deserved nothing less than the best care and support their nation could provide. As the ceremony concluded and the crowd began to disperse, a young soldier in uniform approached Todd. The man stood at attention and saluted, his eyes shining with emotion. "Sergeant Miller." the young soldier said, his voice filled with respect. "I just wanted to thank you. What you've done, what you've started, is going to make a difference for all of us. You never stop fighting for your fellow soldiers." Todd returned the salute, feeling the full weight of the moment. "We take care of our own," he said simply. "Always have, always will." As Todd and April left the ceremony, they knew that their journey was far from over. There would be more battles to fight, more stories to tell, and more changes to advocate for. But they also knew that they were no longer alone in this fight. Todd's tears on that stage a year ago did more than just move a crowd. They had touched a nation's conscience, reminding America of its sacred obligation to those who serve. In doing so, they had sparked a movement, a renewed commitment to honoring the sacrifices of veterans, not just with words, but with meaningful action. As they stepped out into the Washington sunshine, Todd squeezed April's hand. "You know," he said, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth, "I think we might just have started something here." April laughed, her voice filled with love and hope for the future. "Started something, honey? I think you might have just changed the world." And as they made their way down the street, Todd's wheelchair gleaming in the sunlight, they carried with them the hopes and dreams of countless veterans, a living testament to the power of one voice to make a difference and the enduring strength of the human spirit in the face of adversity. Have you ever witnessed or experienced a moment where a personal struggle led to widespread change? If you were in Todd's position, facing years of frustration with the VA system, would you have found the courage to speak up so publicly? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below, and thank you for reading this powerful story of perseverance, hope, and systemic change. Join us for more intriguing stories like this one.